So, after some time had passed since Inepha's release, a new 4-star weapon has been given away for free from the summer event. And it's a Claymore that has nothing to do with the robot, and instead, it has some really good potential with, let's be honest, really niche characters who I will talk about and maybe even speculate a little about its future potential. But at the same time, I'll also investigate the weapon's pros and cons, although I will say this, it's actually one of the better Claymores, but there's always a catch. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice about the new Claymore called Flame Forged Insight is that it's designed mainly for characters who can take advantage of elemental mastery, since it has a pretty low base attack, but great EM substat. And then the passive, man, it's a tricky one this time around because it severely limits who can use this great weapon. You see, in order to trigger the passive, which grants 120 EM boost for 15 seconds and restores 24 energy at max refinement, well, the wielder must trigger Electro Charge, Lunar Charge, or Bloom Reaction. And I actually first thought, oh, maybe Bloom sub-reactions will count as well, but nope, Burgeon or Hyper Bloom sadly didn't trigger this passive. So we're essentially left with this list of units, since between all these three reactions, only Hydro, Electro, and Dendro units can cause them. However, if you've been playing the game long enough, then you should know that Anemo can also trigger at least Electro Charge against multiple enemies, which means Sayu joins the group. And so with this ragtag group of 4 stars led by Fearless Kniech as their leader, is there anyone right now who can benefit from this weapon? Because the last limited event Claymore we got was almost 2 years ago, so it better be good. Well, the good news are, this weapon by itself is absolutely amazing. The bad news? Well, I'll tell you in a moment after today's sponsor. If you're like me, you probably have a soft spot for pixel graphics. Well, today's sponsor, Goddess Order, a premium side-scrolling action RPG, will put your skills to the test. Build a team of 3 unique knights, each with their own distinct playstyle, and then tag between them, create chain attacks, and manage cooldowns. There's normal and hold attacks, ultimates, and even linked skills for tag team finishers. In fact, you can even parry, dodge, and counter. No, this ain't some auto battler. You actually get to play the game and have fun too. And the game will be launching with a huge 20+ knight roster, formed of 5 different classes and elements. So I am for one very excited to pull for these characters. And my god, the pixel art is just stunning. I've played my fair share of them, but the backgrounds here, the sprites, and the animations are next level. The story is also quite nostalgic. You must uncover a broken prophecy to save the world. To be young again. Well, guess no better time than now to experience Goddess Order. The game is set to go global September this year, and you can pre-register to it by using my link in the description, which not only puts you one step closer towards playing the game, but you'll also help support my channel. So, pre-register to Goddess Order now. Alright, let's talk about the first test subject, Razor. Fun fact, in 1.0, he was my main because I couldn't help but feel sad whenever his stand would leave him. Anyway, fast forward to 3.0, and the abomination known as Thundering Fury was born. Razor, who typically is a physical/electro damage dealer, now with the power of C6 Benny and any Dendro unit, can become an Overload, Hyperbloom, Burgeon, and sometimes even Electro Charge spammer. This means you want to build him with full EM, and this event weapon is nearly perfect for him. However, I don't know, maybe I'm not the best Thundering Fury player, or I'm missing something. It's just not that easy to trigger the weapon's passive with him, at least specifically with Dendro unit. Maybe against multiple enemies it would be easier, but the Dendro aura on the enemy usually prevents Electro Charge from happening. I guess you could do something like Xingqiu Slash, switch to Razor to do his skill, but then he loses out on gaining 24 energy if the burst is full at start of rotation, which he badly needs by the way. And maybe you could run him with this weapon in some kind of taser load team without Dendro, or use Dendro units with really weak application. Honestly, the reactions are all over the place when playing him in one of these team comps, even with Dendro. So triggering the Claymore's passive occasionally is pretty good in my opinion, but I would say unless there's someone who can achieve consistency with this weapon, Favonius or something like Rain Slasher is still something he can keep using. Overall, I'd rate this weapon for Razor as a question mark for now. Moving over to Beidou, my first question is, does she really need EM? Not really, but now that Inepha modifies the way everyone contributes to lunar charge damage, you could play Beidou in this type of team with some EM build, so Flame Forged Insight would be pretty decent on her, especially considering Beidou really struggles with burst uptime, so that 24 flat energy is a godsend to her. But for example, when I was testing this team with Inepha, Beidou, Xingqiu, and Aoife, with the amount of EM everyone had, Beidou usually ended up as a 3rd highest damage contributor, and for a lunar charge, that means only 1/12 of her damage damage is contributing, or like about 1000 damage in my case. So no, damage-wise, she doesn't gain much from EM on this weapon, but the energy she can regain from passive is pretty sweet. I guess you could also run her in a taser team with this Claymore, but everyone knows by now Electrocharged is really random, and it's hard to consistently trigger it with the highest EM character when I'm talking about Hydro or Electro units. So yeah, for Beidou, I'd say this is like a C+ weapon. Okay, finally, let's talk about someone who actually loves this Claymore. Dory, more specifically, C6 Dory. I know, there's like 5 of you watching who have C6 Dory, and fellas, let me tell you, for Hyper Bloom teams, this is pretty much her best weapon, due to how much EM she gains, but more importantly, how much energy she can keep regaining. And remember, this passive works even when the unit is off-field, which is really nice. Now, I would say in Quick Bloom teams, this weapon does compete a little with Mailed Flower, another event Claymore released, almost 2.5 years ago. And the reason is that in Quick Bloom, attack and EM both matter. So Mailed Flower usually offers like extra 300 to 400 attack, while Inside Claymore gives 79 more EM. But in the end, it barely matters in my opinion, and I would probably just use the new Claymore now, because it can restore energy. Although, keep in mind, running her with second Electro unit can make it tricky to trigger the weapon's passive, so I like to use another Hydro unit instead. But yeah, Dory, well, C6 Dory really likes this free-to-play weapon, and I'd give it an S rating. Next we have Kinich. F rating, let's move on. No, seriously, he's the only 5-star and it's completely useless on him. But you know who else is Dendro and uses a Claymore? My boy Kaveh. Man, when looking at character main subreddits, he's almost in top 50. Pretty impressive for a guy who does nothing. I'm kidding, but I am sure most Kaveh players agree that his best Bloom team is with Nilo, even though supposedly he powers up the Bloom damage himself. But that's how Genshin works sometimes, and luckily, the Flame Forged insight on him is absolutely bonkers. Seriously, even with his Bloom ownership problems, in Nilo team, he can easily maintain this weapon and regain energy quite easily thanks to the weapon's passive. So yeah, for Kaveh, this is absolutely an S+ rating weapon choice. Finally, we have Sayu, and the way animal units can trigger other reactions is when Swirl interacts with existing auras. Or basically, you need 2 enemies for this to work. And interestingly enough, I would say this is also a case where C6 Sayu enjoyers will once use this event weapon because her healing at C6 starts scaling with EM. Damage too, but it's like whatever. And honestly, Sayu has like the worst energy problems out of all the units I've showcased today. So this weapon's passive is absolutely crucial for her to regain energy. I mean, I actually found her to be quite fun to use in a typical meta team of Rina and Nuvi, even if her burst does single target healing. But it's really fat healing, like 7k ticks. So I'd say with 2+ enemies in a team with Hydro and Electro units, this weapon is easily A+ rating for Sayu. But yeah, that's pretty much all the units who can use Flame Forged insights so far. Oh, I forgot to talk about the last pairing, Hydro Claymore. If I had one. Look, if you've been watching me for a while, you know I don't really delve into leaks, but it's pretty clear this weapon was designed with a future unit in mind. Don't get me wrong, I adore the fact that these ragtag group of 4-stars are getting some love with new loot, but the easiest way to trigger this passive is for a Hydro unit, or Hydro Claymore. And it's also important to note how this passive works even when the unit is off-field, so the weapon remains flexible. Overall, I think Flame Forged Insight has a pretty interesting design, and it's the first time I think when you can't use a free-to-play event weapon on any of the 5-stars, and instead, this is purely a treat for 4-star units, which is kinda cute to be honest. Should you invest resources into this weapon right now? It depends. If you're not actively using one of these units I've showcased, then I would just let it sit at level 1. But I do think if this Claymore is truly designed for a future unit, then right now, utilizing reduced cost to level it is a pretty good idea to do it, to save up on materials. Still, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how much of its value will improve over time, and for now, I'd say the weapon by itself is really good, especially considering units who build EM usually struggle with energy, so the weapon offering a big solution to this, and more than 200 EM is really nice. Anyway, thanks for watching me, make sure to subscribe to my channel, press like on the video, and I'll see you soon.